get going soon. Like I said, this run will start out with a skip right away. So I'm going to be trying to skip about half of the track by riding up a wall and then jumping over a void. So and there's a few issues with this skip right away. First of all, it's very difficult to get stuck at the wall. And even if you get stuck at the wall, sometimes you just slip off and then try again. Which is pretty annoying, because it costs quite a bit of time. And then, once you actually made it up the wall, you still have to get a good launch of it. Because sometimes you will just slip off and don't gain enough height, and then hit the wall and just fall down. Because the wall actually extends up a bit, so the visible part of the wall doesn't quite match with the collision mesh. So hopefully everything will go right, and I will get this skip. But if not, in the worst case scenario, I can just restart the track and try again with it. And after I'm done with this skip, I will go into the basics a bit, explain what we do to go fast in this game, how we get our upgrades, what goes into it. So there's basically a lot of RNG packed into the start of the run.
Hold on, guys. Sorry. There's video seems frozen.
Right, so let's get this started. That was episode 1 racer 100%. Here we go. So Bunta training course first, and I'm going to try to do the skip that I just explained. So I'm just going to go straight for a bit. I go off-road to the left here. Try to climb up this wall here. Let's hope it works. Like you see, I already slipped off, so I'm going to try again. Very tricky. Now I got stuck. Just need to climb up now and get a good launch. And then hope that I won't die to the out of bounds timer that I explained earlier. Let's see if I can get a good launch. Looks good, this should work, but you never know. Alright, so got it once. It's great to see. I'm gonna try it again, hopefully go for 3 out of 3. Alright, got stuck at the wall, that's the first part. Now climbing up and trying to get the good launch again, hopefully. This is the trickiest part basically. So this should work again. But sometimes there's an issue where the lap just doesn't count. And I'm not entirely sure when that happens, but it didn't happen now, which is good to see. It was a pretty fast lap actually. So let's just get it again. Alright. We're at the wall. Going up here. Hoping for the good launch again. This might be an issue. I might die out of bounds. See? I made it. Okay, this is good. Great to see. I didn't expect that, to be honest. So now, what I'm going to do is go to the junkyard, and I'm going to re-roll the junkyard by going to the vehicle select screen until I get the part that I want. And what I'm looking for right here is either a plug 3 or this right here, which is a plug 5, which is really good. So already getting pretty good RNG here. So the reason for buying this part in the junkyard is that high level parts can actually show up pretty early in the junkyard. Even from race 1 on, you can get the best possible top speed part in the junkyard. However, I can't quite afford the best possible part yet, so I'm basically working my way up. Right now I bought a damaged plug 5, and what is going to happen after this race is this upgrade is going to be repaired. And I will trade it in 1 for 1 in terms of value, which means by getting this part and repairing it during this race, I essentially earned money. And after this race I can go to the junkyard again and buy a better top speed upgrade, which will be damaged again, and then I can do the same thing over again. So I'm just doing this to earn money, to get enough money to afford the best possible part after 2 or 3 races already, which will greatly speed up the run. So I'm going to do the same thing again now, but this time I'll be hoping to get a plug 8. The chance is relatively low, but I can re-roll it over and over again. Which shouldn't take too long. There it is, it's too expensive though. So the other thing to note is the parts show up in different health conditions. And the more damaged they are, cheaper they are. So what I'm looking for right now, the really damaged plug 8. Hopefully will show up soon. And if not, I'm just gonna start the race and buy it after the race, because after that I will have a bit more money, because for every race that I win I get a small amount. Well, we got good RNG on the first visit. Now Vato is saying no. Spend some time in my junkyard. Let's see if I can get... Yeah, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. I even have some money left, so I'm already gonna buy a pit droid, so I don't have to do it later. So basically, by getting this plug 8, I'm pretty much set on my top speed for the rest of the run, at least when it comes to buying it in the junkyard. So after this race I will visit the junkyard again to get cooling. Once I got that, I'm almost at the state of unlimited power already. Not quite, but almost. Since the pod I'm gonna be switching to after this is one of the top tier pods in terms of average speed, but the handling of the pod is horrible. So you're gonna see me switch after this race to Aldabido, and he's incredibly fast, but he has really bad repair, acceleration and turning. But it's all worth because of just how fast he is. So this track is called Bido's Wild Ride. It's pretty snowy here, pretty cold. Kind of fitting for the weather right now here in Germany. You can probably relate if you're from Germany. There's a lot of snow here, just like on this track. So this is the first time this run that you're gonna see this shortcut here, which is called the 10 shortcut. And it's pretty tricky to take, especially later on when we do it with faster pods that have a wider hitbox. Right now it's pretty tame still because I'm not going that fast, and EB is rather slow compared to the pod I'm going to be using after this track. So let's talk a bit about basic mechanics. You probably have noticed already that I'm boosting a lot. So when the little dot at the bottom right turns red, that's when I'm boosting. And while I'm doing that, you can see the bar at the bottom right go up. This is what we call heat. This is the resource I'm using to boost. What I'm trying is to never let that bar reach the bottom, to never have it be fully empty, because if it's fully empty, I'm essentially wasting my cooling resource. So I would have spent time not boosting that I could have spent boosting, and that is time loss that you cannot make up again. So this is the first little mechanic to pay attention to, the heat meter. The second thing that is essential to going fast in this game is lines. So you can see me on a lot of corners trying to take the shortest possible line. We call it minimizing distance traveled. And that is because in this game, contrary to other racing games, you do not lose any speed for cornering. So the simple act of turning does not lose you any speed. Which is why taking minimal distance, so the shortest possible lines through all corners, is optimal in this game. A good metaphor for it is if you imagine a red thread spanning through the track, touching every apex, that is the best line. So essentially go from apex to apex in a straight line. That's what you want to do in optimal case. However, since doing that involves going extremely close to walls, it gets increasingly risky the closer you try to cut corners. So it is very high risk for very minimal gains. And that also makes for a really high skill ceiling in this game. So that was Beatles Worldwide, and like I said, right now I'm gonna go to the junkyard again, and now I'm looking for cooling. What I want is a dual coolant pump or a turbo coolant pump.
You'll not find a better deal anywhere.
Well, I'll take this just in case, but I want one tier higher, optimal. Oh, what is that? That is a block 5. I will take that because it earns me some money. And it will make sure that I'm actually fully capped out in top speed after the next race. And there's the turbo. Can I afford this? I can. That's perfect. So, that is really good. Also, yes, technically I could submit IL times that I get during a 100 run, but it's it's almost impossible for me to actually PB anywhere, because in ILs almost all times are done with Ben Cardinaros, and I only unlock Ben at the very end of this run. You will only see him on one track in this run. So very unlikely, very unlikely that I would PB anywhere. But technically, yeah, it would be allowed. So, like you can see, this guy goes pretty fast. As soon as I boost, he almost reaches 1k. And that is the reason why we use him. What you probably can't tell right now is how bad his handling actually is. So it's a lot more effort to make him go through the corners well, especially in this part right here. And another thing about him is he has really bad acceleration and repair, which means any mistake you make while using this guy is extremely punishing. If you ever get a red engine, it's a huge time loss because of his horrible repair and acceleration. But yeah, it's all worth just for the raw speed. And almost made a mistake there. What I like to say about this run is it starts off pretty tame. You might have noticed me already doing a skip, and for a while there won't be another skip. But as the second half of the run starts, the run is gonna take off and get really crazy, because there's a lot of skips and a lot of difficult courses in the end game, and they're also pretty long. So compared to most racing games, tracks in this game are actually really damn long, especially later on. So right now it's still, well, 1 minute per lap, which isn't too crazy. But later on there's tracks where laps are going to be more than 1.5 minutes. So the entire track will take almost 5 minutes. In one case it will even go above 5 minutes. I'm still in the amateur circuit right now, which is the first circuit of the game, which is meant to be, well, meant to be there to getting players warmed up to this game, essentially. Tracks are still pretty simple to do, maybe with the exception of one particular one that will come in later. And You can see it right now. I'm lapping the AI, and that's actually pretty dangerous because they like to get in your way. They like to actively block you, and if they happen to block you while you boost, it's very likely that you just blow up. So they're very much a hazard. Anyway, so right now what I'm going to do is buy a bit of turning from the shop. I could buy this from the junkyard too, but there's already been enough RNG in this run, so I'm just gonna get turning from the shop here. It's just gonna help me out a lot in the coming tracks. So, this track is called Malastari 100. It's the first track on the Malastari planet, home planet of Sebulba, by the way. So, this is one of two tracks in the game which is actually modeled after a real-life circuit. Can't quite recall which one this is exactly modeled after. I should have probably looked that up before the run. But it's based in California somewhere. Maybe someone in the chat can help which track this one was modeled on. I know the second one. I know which one the second one is modeled on or by. But I can't quite recall this one. Anyway, this track is very much defined by one particular corner that comes at the very end of the track that you saw me do, and we call it the Hairpin. Because, well, probably speaks for itself. And it's also one of the very few instances in this run where I actually have to use my brakes to slow down. So I'm approaching it again right here. Just a straight up 180 turn. And quite difficult to do. If you do this track in the category Amateur Circuit No Upgrades, you will actually take this corner without braking at all, which is quite cool to see. And also in the IL, so in the time trial with Ben, you also take this corner without braking. Now we're coming to lap the AI again. Hopefully they will be kind to us here. They really like to get in your way, and it can become really dangerous. I would be surprised if I do not die to the AI at least once in this run. We will see. So far it's going pretty well. And now we are approaching a very notorious track. This is universally agreed to be the hardest track in Amateur Circuit by far, called Vengeance. And it has something that some of you might remember if you played this game before, and it's called the anti-gravity tubes. And they are usually a nightmare to casual players, and even to beginner to intermediate speedrunners, because they drastically change how the pod handles. They basically kinda lock you in the middle of the tube. Once you get used to them though, once you have a pattern to get through them, they actually tend to become the easiest part of this track. It's kind of funny to say because, like I said, if you start out with this game, this will be a nightmare to do. Because you very much need to have a solid pattern to dodge all of these rocks. Because even just touching one of these rocks lightly will immediately blow up your pod. Which you haven't seen so far in this run, which is good. I haven't crashed so far. But it's very easy to crash in this game. You touch a wall, you touch any object on your way, you will just blow up. And on average that will lose you 4 to 6 seconds. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the exact circumstances of the crash. I'm hoping that you won't see this a lot this run, but you will definitely see it at some point. It is virtually impossible to not crash in a 100% run. Even though it would be nice, it's not gonna happen. So, going through these tubes again. Hopefully avoiding all of the hazards. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to not underheat during this phase. Underheating meaning having my heat bar sit on 0, being empty, essentially wasting resources. You never want to do that. And I underheated a bit here, but that's fine. It's better than going too risky and crashing. So approaching lap 3. And this is the second to last track in the amateur circuit. After the next track we will actually be changing pod again. The pod I'm going to be using after that isn't quite faster than this one. Well, its average speed is very slightly faster than this one, all things considered. But the main reason I'm doing it is because its handling is extremely good. And it's also really good for most of the skips that I'm going to be doing this. So you can look forward to that. For now, I'm gonna see if I can finish this off cleanly. Trying to have as high heat as possible while ending this lap. So essentially what you want to do at the end of lap 3, you always want to have as high heat as you can while crossing the line. For the simple reason that by doing that you used more boost. But it's on some tracks it's pretty difficult to do actually. So, Spiceman run, and this is the first time I actually missed the starting boost. Which loses about 1.5 seconds, so it's not a big deal. You have a quarter second of a window to initiate the starting boost. 0.3 to 0.005 before the race starts. You have to press accelerate to get the starting boost. Shoutouts to Lightning Pirate for actually figuring out the exact timing. I didn't know that until a few days ago. Always good to see. Anyway, what I'm on right now is what we call fast terrain. So if you paid attention to my speedometer at the bottom right, you could have seen that my speed went up while I was on this three-way crossroad conveyor belt, that you call it. And that is one of the instances of fast terrain in this game. And what that does is, like I said, it essentially speeds you up for free. So what we want to do there, we want to maximize the time we spend on that without wasting any resources. So what I'm trying to do is be full heat before I enter it, and then cool down on the entire fast terrain. To spend as much time as possible on the free speed game. But again, I want to make sure I don't underheat in the process, because that would flat out be losing time. So if you pay attention to this lap, you can see me do it again. I'm going to be trying to be on as high heat as I can before the three-way crossroad, so I can cool down during the entire thing. I'm going to do another boost here to be on high heat, and even do a small boost here, be full heat here, and then cool down the entire way. And start boosting again to not overheat. Another basic thing to note that I forgot to mention earlier is that optimally you want to do as long boosts as possible. So you want your heat to be almost at 0 and then do a full boost to almost full heat, optimally. But it's far less important to do that than to get good lines and to minimize your distance. So it's a common misconception among newer players or casual players that having boosts as long as possible is the most important thing. It's not quite true. It's way more important to minimize the distance that you travel. That is by far the most important thing in this game. And we're on Spiceman Run. So what that means is, on this track, I will actually lap every single AI racer, all 11 of them. So this will become very dangerous on the last lap, because yeah, they will try to get in my way, they will try to make me crash by blocking me. So let's hope I can avoid them. And I boosted a little bit here now, just to make sure I don't underheat at the end of it. And there comes another one. Actually intentionally cutting my boost here to make sure. Ah, there we go. So that was the first instant of one of them actually blocking me intentionally and making me blow up in the process. And it just so happens to be that it was the first crash of the run, and I can blame it on the AI, so at least I can do that. But that might also mean that I'm not gonna lap every single one of them. We'll find out in a few seconds. Probably not gonna lap all of them. Which I guess is good, but at the same time I crashed for it, so unlucky I guess. Anyway, that was Amateur Circuit. What I'm gonna do now is restart the game. That's a bit faster than watching the cutscene. So like I said before, we're actually gonna be switching pod once again. Askur with basically as fast as Speedo, you could say he's slightly faster. But the upside is, his turning is actually amazing. The only downside of this pod is his hitbox is incredibly wide. He has the largest hitbox in the game. So it's quite difficult to take certain parts of tracks. And one of these parts is actually coming up on this track. It's essentially a U-turn shortcut that's has a very narrow passage, and it's coming up right here. So let's hope I can nail this. Very difficult. Alright, we got it. So this is really hard to do, especially with Mars, because like I said, his hitbox is extremely wide. So if you just get stuck at the edge of any of these textures, you just blow up. And it's actually possible for you to get a really bad respawn if you die on this shortcut. I'm gonna hope that it's not gonna happen this run. But I have to do this shortcut 6 times overall in this run, because, well, 3 times on this track, and later on there comes another track where I have to do the exact same shortcut again. And that's a common thing in this game, that tracks actually share certain parts. So there's a lot of reoccurring or recycled parts of tracks that you can see on multiple tracks. Which on one hand it's pretty cool, but at the same time it would have been cool to have a bit more variety. But I can't really complain, because generally track design in this game is very well done. There's hardly any track I dislike in this game. All of them are really well done in my opinion. So shoutouts to the devs. Anyway, going for the shortcut again. Alright, bonked a bit, but it's fine. Didn't lose much speed. The important thing is that I don't crash there. Another thing I really like about this game is the pure sense of speed you have. So it really feels like you're going 1,000 whatever units. It's an amazing feeling to go fast in this game. Also, a little fun fact, in the Star Wars Racer community we call this, the units of the speed we just call ASU, arbitrary speed units, because it's not quite clear if it was intended to be miles per hour or kilometers per hour. On the back of the European version of the game it says kilometers per hour, but on the back of the American version it says miles per hour. So we can't quite be sure which it is, so we just say arbitrary speed units. And this part of the run is probably the most chill part of the run, so the next 3 tracks are basically a little downtime for me to prepare for what's coming afterwards, which is the really hard part. And say hi to Sebulba. We just left Sebulba. I thought he always wins, that's weird. Anyway, I got this shortcut all 3 laps, which is great to see. Now we're lapping AI again, hoping that they don't get in our way. And like I explained before, I'm gonna try to be on as high heat as possible while crossing the finish line. That was a really solid sunken city, great to see. And now we're going to Howler Gorge, which is the second map on the Ando Prime planet. And yeah, it's pretty cold here. Now technically, this track has a skip, but it's only really worth doing in ILs, and it only has been done once so far, which was yesterday actually. Domire got it yesterday, which was great to see. He actually used Bolus Raw for this. It's a skip that just has been proven possible a few weeks ago, and it's extremely difficult to get, very inconsistent. And it's not possible to do in 100%, so I'm not going for it here. After this track though, we're gonna be seeing the second skip of the game, which is gonna be on Duck Derby, and it also happens to be the smallest skip of the game. It's just a very tight, very small corner cut. Cuts out a very slight bit of track, only saving roughly 3 to 4 tenths. But I'm still gonna go for it, because it looks pretty cool. And usually I'm rather consistent with it. Anyway, now we're gonna go for the 10 shortcut again. This time it's a bit more difficult because, like I said, Mars is extremely wide. His hitbox is enormous. So it's very hard to get in there. Not a big deal though. Like I said, crashes are very much unavoidable in the category, essentially. At some point you're gonna crash. And it costs, like I said before, around 4 to 6 seconds, depending on the exact circumstance. And that's what I get for calling this easy part of the run. That's what the game does. If you call anything easy in this game, the game will make you crash for it on the easy part. So don't do that. So let's see if I can at least get one clean tent here. Alright, that was much better. And this right here where I'm going through, this icy path, is also fast terrain, like I explained earlier. So I'm trying to maximize my time spent on it, while not sitting on 0 heat in the process. What I like to say when I do PB attempts is the run doesn't really start until Saga Challenge, and it's not long anymore until we actually get to race the Saga Challenge. In fact, there's only 2 tracks between us and Saga Challenge now, and that's when the run gets really interesting. Anyway, on to Duck Derby now. This is the other track in the game, which is actually modeled after a real-life circuit, and it's modeled after Laguna Seca. One is also in California, and if you compare the track layout of Laguna Seca with the track layout of Duck Derby, it looks exactly the same, which is really cool. It also happens to be the second shortest track in the game if you discount skips, and it's still considered one of the most difficult tracks in the game, even though it's so short, because it's extremely technical. It's very hard on this track to not underheat and to get a lot of boost in, but still doing it cleanly. So it's very tense, especially in time trials. And it's one of my favorite tracks in the game, for sure. It's super fun to do. So shoutouts to the devs again for the amazing track design. Still holds up almost 22 years later. Same for the sense of speed.
It's a new lap record.
Oh, that was a weird crash. So essentially what I did there is, you might have seen me leaning into turns a lot, which is called sliding. So essentially I'm pre-turning my pod before corners, and once I release the slide button it kind of snaps me into place like a slingshot. And I did the same thing for the corner there, but because I did that, I actually hit the edge of the corner with my cockpit, and that made me blow up. So it's very, very easy to crash in this game. Even the smallest of touches can end in a crash. So this track also has a little trick, which is not a skip, but a little jump, which I will be attempting to do. I wouldn't do this in PB attempts because it hardly saves any time. But I might as well show it off in this run, because it's cool to see. And that was it. Essentially flying over one corner. It hardly saves any time at all, but looks cool. If you watch the IL in this game, the time trial record, you can actually see this jump done in an even crazier version, where you boost during jump, and it looks even cooler. But for the purpose of safety, I'm not gonna go for that. I'm just gonna go for the safe version, which also sometimes can go wrong. You can just blow up at the ramp that you launch off sometimes, because the game decides you deserve to. And yeah, this is the last chill track for a while. After this, it's gonna be tough. So the next track, the Saga Challenge, has 3 skips per lap, and 2 of them come right after each other, and it's extremely difficult to get both at the same time. I'm gonna be attempting it, but it's very likely to go wrong. But I'm hoping to get it at least once, to show off all of the 3 skips, so you guys have an idea of how it would look like if done well. Trying to lap the AI again without crashing, and it was a pretty solid scrapper's run. I'm not quite on full heat, but it's not that big of a problem. So right here I'm going to the shop again, buying everything I can to maximize my success rate on this triplex skip. And I would agree, this might be the hardest thing in the game, at least if you try it with Ben. If you try it with Mars, I wouldn't say it's the hardest thing in the game, but it's still very, very difficult. Yesterday was the first time I got it 3 times in all 3 laps in IL attempts. But obviously, since this is RTA, I only have 1 try here. So it's gonna come up very soon. First of all, I'm gonna go on the lower track here, hopefully, right here. Then I'm gonna launch off this upcoming edge, get out of bounds, land down here, right up here, and fly over this gap, land back on the track right here. And that was the double skip. Extremely difficult to get consecutively. Luckily I got it. And there's another skip coming up at the very end of the lap, which we call the lap trigger skip. And this might confuse you when you see it, so I'm just going to show it off once. And then over the course of the next lap I'm going to explain what happened here. So, looks weird, right? Wait, why did the lap trigger? This is weird. But it's only weird if you don't know that this game actually doesn't have a real finish line, but it actually, the way it determines if you finish a lap is it just checks if you went from the last zone of the track to the first zone of the track. So you don't actually have to physically cross the line. As long as you go from the last zone of the track to the first zone of the track, the lap triggers. If you're familiar with the checkpoint zone system in Mario Kart Wii, this game is actually pretty similar. The only difference being that the zones are much bigger. I'm going to focus for a moment. And I failed, okay. Sometimes this happens and you just clip back up into the tunnel. But can't really do anything about it. I can still attempt a second run here. And I got it with boost actually, which is good. So, only failed one skip so far, which is fine. But in any case, I'm gonna do the last skip again, the lap trigger skip. Which is, even though it looks crazy, it's the easiest of the 3 skips by far. So I'm gonna brake earlier. You can see the little texture change at the bottom. This is the end of zone 1. So as soon as I cross over that, as far as the game is concerned, I'm going from the last zone to the first zone of the track. Therefore, I'm ending the lap. And I essentially start the next lap already 5% into it. So it skips a significant portion. And all 3 skips combined, if you get all 3 of them, all 3 laps, you save approximately 45 seconds total. Obviously is a huge amount. So try and get it again, hopefully. Nope, clip back up again. That's not a big deal. I'm gonna attempt the other one again, even though it's very likely to fail, like this. So this happens a lot if you try to launch there. If you're not precise enough, you just crash. But at least I got all 3 of them on the first lap, so you guys saw what it's supposed to look like. Optimally, you do what I do in the first lap 3 times. But it's extremely inconsistent and very, very hard to do. I have yet to get a gold split that has all of the 3 skips on all 3 laps. I'm looking forward to the day it happens. Anyway, right now we don't have to turn around at the end, so we're just gonna fly over here and boost into the zone 1, ending the lap. And going on to Baru Coast, which is the first track on the Burunda planet. And this planet is notorious for hosting 4 of the hardest tracks in the game. Essentially all 4 tracks on this planet are among the top 7 hardest courses in the game. And this one is one of them. And by some considered the 2nd hardest course in the game, at least for time trials, when you use Ben here. If you use Mars in this 100% setting, it's a bit easier. Not quite as brutal as using Ben in the IL. But still a very, very technical course. With a lot of hazards and a lot of things that can go wrong, especially in this area right here. Even though hitting the walls here is usually quite lenient, if you hit it in the wrong angle you still blow up. The main difficulty of this course is just getting enough boosting in while still getting clean lines and not crashing. So it's very, very difficult to not underheat a lot on this. Very, very technical. Like I said, especially during actual time trials when you use Ben here. It's absolutely brutal. For now this is going pretty well. That's a very solid lap. Also, you might hear the announcer say it's a new lap record, but it's not true. Since there's a file you can remove in the game which tracks your records, it never really is up to date because I frequently remove this file because I tend to play around a lot with save states, and that sometimes happens. Sometimes happens that you mess up your records if you use save states. Get times that are impossible. So it might say a new lap record a few times, but it's never gonna be an actual lap record for me. So, after this track has no skips, but after this track there's gonna be another major skip. And it's probably the biggest run killer in the entire game. Because it saves around 45 seconds. The problem is it has no backup. So you only have 1 try per lap, and if you fail it, cannot try again. So it's a flat 45-second time loss if you fail it. And you have to do it 3 times. So you can potentially lose over 2 minutes on on the next track. Sub 120 lap, really solid in this setting. So let's hope I can get another of those. And yeah, this little jump that I just did is not considered a skip, because you don't actually go over any void. And there's certain rules we have to defining a skip in this game, which is too much to go over during this run, but if you're curious, you can just check it on speedrun.com. Also, if you're interested in the racer community, or want to pick up this game as a speedrun, or just join the multiplayer sessions, I very much encourage you to join our community Discord, which you can find the link to also on speedrun.com. Definitely check it out. And while you're at it, you should also check out the Star Wars Speedrun Discord, which where the idea of this newly created channel originated. It's essentially a central hub for Star Wars speedrunning, so definitely check that out. Right here we're just finishing off Baruchos with a sub 4, great to see. So here comes the run killer I was just talking about. If I can find him, I'm gonna switch to Elon Mac. Sure, I am on the highest possible upgrade parts that I can afford right now. Then hope that I get the skip. So it comes close to the very start of this track. Right here after this straight, I'm gonna go left, you will see. Launch off this hill and land on this part of the track. This almost went wrong. If you undershoot the track, it's over. You lose 45 seconds. If you die mid-air, it's over. You lose 45 seconds. Very treacherous. Will easily completely kill your run if you miss it. That was a weird death, because I basically was already through the shortcut, but I hit the very right edge of the wall and it decided to blow me up, which is pretty common at that spot, so I'm not quite surprised by it. It's not as bad as completely failing the shortcut though, so not a big deal. The most important thing is that I get to skip all 3 laps. So it really hurts to not get this, because we are already 45 minutes in, and if I was on a PB attempt, failing this would be game over. My run would essentially be over. So I would have to reset. Definitely hurts after 45 minutes. Ooh, that was close. Almost crashed, but luckily I didn't. This track also marks the end of the second circuit in the game. And with it... Ooh, almost missed that corner. With it, it also marks the start of the hardest circuit in the game, called the Galactic Circuit. And it has some extremely brutal tracks. Among it, the track from episode 1, Bunta Classic. So, we're definitely gonna see that too. But for now I'm gonna see if I can get the skip again. Looks good. Alright. Great to see. And got a clean shortcut as well, that's good. So that was a pretty solid bumpy breakers. Now after this track I'm going to restart the game again, because it's quicker than watching the podium cutscene. And lapping AI. This is the second time I lapped the 12th place, by the way. The first time you didn't see, because of the skip. But they are still on lap 1. That's how slow they are. Oh, there was the semi-pro circuit. Now onto the Galactic circuit. I'm going to be switching back to Mars here. And there's going to be another skip right away. Like I said, there's the end of this run is definitely packed. Hard tracks and skip. This one, however, has a very consistent setup. So it is very easy to learn, at least in this setting with Mars. If you want to learn this for ILs though, with the fastest possible method with Ben, it's an absolute pain. Extremely difficult. But since I'm on Mars here and I have a really good setup for this, I really shouldn't be failing this. But then again, I shouldn't have said this because, like I said earlier, the game likes to punish you for saying anything in that group. Anyway, we go up the wall here, right up a bit, launch off the wall, go over this fence, launch into this, what's it called? Not quite sure what you would call it. It looks pretty cool though. And it is technically the longest drop in the entire game. So it's definitely, you could definitely make an argument for calling this the most visually impressive skip in the game. Even though there's some crazy stuff still coming up. Solid lap 1. And this is also another track that has the infamous gravity tubes. But one of them I'm actually skipping by doing the skip. So what you would do normally, instead of riding up the wall to the left and launching over the fences, you would go through an entire gravity tube. But that's slow, so I guess I'm just gonna jump over here instead. I'm gonna fly a bit further to show you the scenery. Now after this track there will be another one that is quite short, but very technical, a bit like Duck Derby. After that one, the hardest track in the game is coming up. So you're hopefully in for a treat, if I can get it right. But for now let's finish this off and then the next track, which, like I said, is rather short compared to the really long tracks at the moment. Like this one, for example, almost 4 minutes long in its entirety. And it's a very common theme for the upcoming tracks. All of them are really damn long and also quite difficult. So it's really difficult to keep your focus up for a run this long. Made a small mistake here with the heat, but not a big deal. I was still pretty clean. Alright, moving on to Silver's Legacy. Like I said, pretty short track, but very technical. And it also has a very interesting trick at the very end of it that used to be considered a skip, but since we have a clear definition now, it no longer is considered a skip by Speedrun.com rules. Which again, if you're curious about how exactly we define these skips, check it out on SRC. It's a bit too much to explain during this. Anyway, it's already the end of the lap here, and right now I'm skipping this corner right here by launching off this wall, going over here. And probably looks a bit easier than it is. Pretty easy to fail. But it saves about 3 seconds per lap, so it's very much worth doing. And yeah, after this it's gonna get really interesting because I'm gonna be switching pot again. Because like I said, the hardest track in the game is coming up. And it's the one of only 2 tracks in the entire game where for the time trial record or the IL, we do not use Ben. But we use Bullseye instead because of his amazing turning. It's one of the only 2 tracks where Ben isn't the fastest. Meanwhile, lapping AI again, hoping they won't get in my way. Well, I think it was Aldabido there that killed me. He probably just wanted revenge because I switched to Mars instead of using him further in the run. So I understand. I would be salty too. It's the second time the AI blew me up this run. Still a solid time. And, well, now it gets interesting, because this is gonna be very tense, and I might actually not talk a lot during this, because it requires an extreme amount of focus. Second time we visit the Barunda planet, and this time it's the hardest trick in the game. So you'll see me do a lot of really short boosts, because there's not a lot of opportunity to actually get long ones in, and you have to boost as much as you possibly can while still trying to not hit anything. And this is also one of the only sections in the entire run where I have to use my brakes. There's actually 2 sections on this track where I have to do exactly that. This was one of them. And the general concepts still apply here, which makes this track so hard. So you want to go as tight as you can, go from every apex to the next apex in a straight line, go extremely close to the walls to be optimal. And this is what makes this so difficult. And again, not an actual lap record, but a solid time, nevertheless. Anything sub 420 here is really good, 100% run. And now here's a shortcut opening up, which I have to brake really hard for because I'm on stock brakes. So I have to brake really early to make this. In the IL you would see me braking much later because I'm on maximum brakes there. But I don't have this in 100%. I'm only on very limited upgrades, only the essential upgrades to make me go really fast. So far so good. Later on in this run there's a track that is similar to this, which is basically the big brother of Griffin Gateway. It's a little bit easier but a bit longer. 124, that's pretty good time for the setting. And again, coming up on this shortcut here, so I'm gonna brake early, slow down so I make this. If you play this game casually, it's really easy to actually don't even recognize this shortcut at all, because it's not really in your field of view, and so when you don't know it's there, it's very hard to spot. Alright, last time going through the swamp here. Gonna brake again. And I'm taking safe lines here, by the way. There's lines you can take through here that are a bit faster, but they are extremely risky. So I'm definitely going a little bit conservative, just to make sure that I don't crash. Coming up to the end here, should be a sub 420 by all means. Yep, 415, really good. Alright, switching back to Mars here for the next track. Also quite a difficult track. And you might remember the start of this track, because the first half of this track is essentially the same as on the track we did earlier in this run, which was called Howler Gorge. And like I said, there's a lot of recycled parts in this game that are shared by a lot of tracks. This is one of them. The first 35 seconds of this track are exactly similar to Howler Gorge. So this hairpin section right here, exactly the same, up until the jump and after the ice field, and then it starts to differ. So, and this jump is still the same, the ice field is also the same, but on Howler Gorge we would go up here, but since we're on Untitled Mountain Run, we're going down through this tunnel and the long straight. And we're approaching a very difficult section, which we call this canyon section. This is a series of very... didn't pay attention there. That wasn't the difficult section. The difficult section is the one I'm approaching right now, which is what we call the canyon section. It's a series of very tight and difficult switchbacks. And I'm going to attempt what we call the fast canyon, which is doing this while not slowing down. Basically like this. And it's pretty difficult, even with Mars, but it's extremely difficult if you attempt this in ILs with Ben. Also 10 shortcut again, you probably remember this. It's actually on all on 3 of the 4 ice tracks in this game where you have to do the 10 shortcut. So it's quite notorious among runners, because it's easy to fail, and it's so important to get right because, well, it's on 3 tracks. So in this 100% run I have to do this shortcut 6 times total. So let's see if I can show off the fast canyon again without crashing before it, because I will have a little bit more speed if I do that. So I also want to make sure I'm on full heat while entering this, to minimize underheating during it. Also try to build in really small boosts. Then stay on the inside line here to be able to get these corners without slowing down. Like I said, it's pretty difficult. I definitely recommend checking out the IL for this track and seeing the fast canyon with Ben. It's quite a sight. Same for Griffin Gateway, to be honest. Because seeing Griffin Gateway in 100% is one thing, but seeing it done in ILs, where people actually try to go as fast as they can, is even more exciting, honestly. So going to approach this canyon one more time, hoping to get it cleanly again. And I messed it up. Well, at least that shows how easy it can go. How easy you can fail this. One little missed input, one little mistake, and well, the whole thing just fails. Anyway, still pretty solid. Now we're going to D-Force for Revenge, which is by far the easiest track in the circuit, so it's a little downtime for me to relax. Even though it still has the potential to kill me, it is rather short and much easier than everything else in this circuit. So this is a good track to prepare my mind for the end game, because the last 6 tracks that come after this are absolutely crazy. So after this track, there's going to be the big brother of Griffin Gateway, like I said, it's Fire Mountain Rally, which is essentially like Griffin Gateway. They share a lot of parts, but Fire Mountain is a bit longer and generally considered slightly easier than Griffin. Not by a lot though. And after Fire Mountain, all of the 5 remaining tracks have major skips. So the entire end game is just breaking the game as much as I can. It's gonna look pretty crazy if you've never seen it before. But it also makes for a very difficult ending. Because like I said, all of the 5 last tracks have major skips, and some of them are really hard to do and really easy to mess up. This track also technically has a skip, which only saves a really small amount of time though, so it's not worth the risk in 100%. What I will do though is the special ending on this track. You can do a funny little trick at the very end that I won't spoil, but I will just do it and let you enjoy it. It looks pretty cool. And the reason I'm going to do it is so I am on as high heat as possible while crossing the line. So the trick is coming at the very end, after this section right here, so pay attention. So, gonna fall below the track and end like this. Just to have a little bit more heat at the end. And now here's the big brother of Griffin Gateway. It is the longest track in the game time-wise. So if you compare all of the tracks and if you discount skips, this track takes the most amount of time to complete. There's only one track that is longer distance-wise, but since the average speed on this track is much lower than on the other one, time-wise, this one is the longest. And it's also the only one of 2 tracks, including Griffin Gateway, where we use this guy, Bullseye, even for ILs/time trials, because he's much faster here than Ben because of the, well, curvy nature of this track. Let's call it like that. Has a lot of turns. Essentially, if you count every single corner, all 3 laps of this course have about 150 corners. I'm not quite sure how many Grapevine has, but on Grapevine you do 1 corner every 2 seconds on average. So it's quite insane. And it's really what makes these tracks so difficult. The amount of tight corners that you have to do right after each other, while still trying to boost a lot. You still have to boost as much as you can while navigating this. Another thing I haven't explained yet that I just realized is you see me tilt my pod to the side a lot, and it doesn't really make me fast or anything, but it just makes my hitbox a bit smaller. And usually if you do that, you lose turn rate. However, if you boost, you also lose turn rate, and it just happens to be that the turn rate modifier you get while boosting overrides the turn rate modifier you get while tilting your pod to the side. So tilting your pod to the side while boosting has virtually no downside and only the benefit of making your hitbox a bit smaller. That's why you see me do it a lot. generally, if you watch speedruns of this game, you will see people tilting their pod to the side all the time, just because of that reason. Every time they boost, they will tilt their pod to the side, just to make the hitbox a bit smaller. And what it also does is it avoids a lot of the, what we call random floor deaths. You've probably seen this before if you played this game, where your pod randomly seems to die to the floor, or crash on the floor. And it's not random, it happens at very specific spots. And it can be avoided by tilting your pod to the side, at least most of them. Also, this was the shortcut you saw on Grapevine, but in reverse. In fact, the entire ending of this track, including the path I'm taking now, is essentially the beginning of Grapevine Gateway, just in reverse. That's why I called it the big brother of Grapevine Gateway. Bit longer, bit easier, but they share a lot of track parts, even though it's in reverse. One thing I forgot so far is, usually what I do in this track is preemptively repair my engines, especially if they reach yellow or orange. Just so, if I happen to hit a wall, which happens quite frequently here, my engines don't turn red. Because if one of my engines turns red, I will lose turning ability on the opposite side, which can hurt you, this track, a lot. It can spiral out of control really quickly once you get a red engine. So, since Bullseye has really good base acceleration and repair, even though I haven't bought repair or acceleration upgrades so far, I can afford to just repair, and I will hardly lose any time for it. Because his base stats in these two sections are so good. Coming up to the shortcut here again, where I have to brake a bit. And I have to brake early because, like I said, I'm on stock brakes. But that was pretty solid. And now the end game really starts. And we have the Bunta Classic, which is also among the longest tracks in the game. It also has a rather big skip. And after that, the only 4 tracks are left that are in the Invitational Circuit, and all of them involve major skips. Some of them involve the most broken skips in this. But for now, enjoy the Bunta Classic. This is the track from episode 1, the Phantom Menace. And it is actually pretty well modeled. If you compare this to how it looks in the film, you can actually follow along. It's really well made. For example, this right here is the service ramp where Anakin overtakes Sebulba in the film. And yeah, generally, you can recognize a lot of these sections. One bad thing about this track is it has a lot of sand. And we don't like sand, because it's rough, it's coarse, it's irritating. So what we do is we do the skip and fly over a lot of the sand. Because yeah, who likes sand? It gets everywhere, especially in the engines. And here's the Tusken Raiders that you also see in the film. The little flames you see at the floor, well, they're not really little, but the flames you see at the floor are meant to be their shots, and they can seriously mess you up if you run through them. They completely throw you off your line and take away traction from your pod. So they can really throw you around, and it can become really messy. And there is a way, however, to manipulate how they spawn, which I might explain on the next lap if I find the time for it. But for now, that was a pretty solid lap. And you can also see me at the very start here do a little shortcut. And while doing the shortcut, I'm doing another shortcut. Jumping over here. So it's a shortcut essentially. Just like this is a hairpin during a hairpin. Then we're going up the service ramp again. But I don't know, like I would like to have a good race with Sebulba here, maybe overtake him, but not sure where he is. Maybe he already finished the race. He's supposed to win, but well, I don't know. Something must have went wrong. Anyway, going for the skip again here. It's rather easy to mess up actually, the setup for it. Oh, I got a lot of height here, so I can do the fancy version. Where I land in here. So, the flames trigger at 2 specific spots, which is when you hear the tasking radar scream. And the position of the flames are determined by my current average speed while crossing this spawn spot. Oh, I got a red engine, that sucks. So like you see, I'm gonna actually crash on purpose here. These flames can seriously mess you up. However, you can manipulate them because the position they spawn at is determined by the average speed you have while you're going over the spawn trigger. So if you don't boost while going over the second spawn trigger and then start boosting, usually what happens is all of the flames spawn behind you. Shoutouts to Hayu for figuring this out. It was definitely a surprise to find out that you can manipulate them, but it was a welcome one. So, on to the last lap, going for the skip again. And then there's only 4 tracks left, and if everything goes right, all of these 4 last tracks should be done in less than 7 minutes. Even though, if you wouldn't use any skips, just doing one of them would take over 5. But we're doing skips, so gonna be a bit quicker than that, hopefully. And during one of them there's also multiple variants of the skip that I can do. And I'm gonna try to show off a few of them, but some of them are very inconsistent, so they might not work. But I'm gonna do my best to show off not only the safe method, but also the really risky ones that were only found during the last year and a half and later than that even. Anyway, that was the Galactic Circuit. And now the only thing that's left is the Invitational. Like I said, 4 tracks. And 3 of them are completely broken. I would advise to minimize blinking during this section because you might just miss an entire track. So starting off with this one. Go up this wall. Already skipped 10 seconds of the track, but that's not enough, so you brake, turn around here, go up this wall, back to the finish line, and well, that's the lap. Do it again. Right up the ceiling, and do it again. Hopefully I can make it over. I can't. I actually skipped back a bit, not a big deal though, because this is so short. I'll just do it again. Because it was so nice. Going over here, riding on the ceiling, over to this part of the track, turning around again, and finishing Inferno. That's already it. And now onto Gauntlet. Now this one is the track I was just talking about. It has some multiple variants of a very specific skip. All of them essentially accomplish the same, but to varying degrees of fastness. So first of all, I'm gonna show off the old school variant. The one that has been around for almost 15 years now. And that is just riding up this little hill here to go over this fence and land on this part of the track. Skipping approximately 50 seconds of track. Now this is the easy version. This is very much the safe version. Here's another gravity tube, by the way. Now on lap 2 and 3 I'm gonna try to show off very well, different versions of what we call the drain skip. And we call it the drain skip because it involves smashing your face into a rock. And usually that goes very wrong, as you would expect. Smashing your face into a rock usually doesn't have the best of outcomes, but sometimes it does. So I'm gonna turn around here, smash my face into this rock, and it didn't work. However, I can just try this again for the sake of this marathon, so you guys can actually see it in action. No, not quite. So what I'm trying to do is not losing my boost here. It doesn't want to work, but I can do this a few times, because the AI is probably still on lap 1. Here we go. Now we fly over this fence, break a bit, fall down, land down here, and, well, essentially accomplish the same thing we did before, but a little bit quicker. Well, now it wasn't quicker because I needed like 4 tries for it. But this is very much the safe version of the drain skip. There's also the actual drain skip that was first found, and that is by far the most unreliable and difficult thing. It might be the hardest thing to do in this game, reliably. I'm gonna try to show it off. Let's see if it works. So we want to launch from the edge of this rock. I kinda missed it. Let's try again. This one is difficult to back up though. I want to launch off the edge. I got it. Nice. Get some height and then land down there. No. Oh man. I wasn't supposed to clip back in here, but you probably got the idea already. I don't think I'll get it again. So I hope you got the idea what I was meaning to do, but unfortunately I clipped back up. But that's fine. I'm just gonna do the safe version, finish the gauntlet, and then I'm gonna go to everybody's favorite track, the infamous Abyss, and I'm gonna take revenge on Abyss on your behalf, on everyone's behalf that suffered on this track, maybe when they played this as a kid, because I'm gonna take it apart. So Abyss is the track where you have to stay on the top level, and if you fall down you have to do a penalty lap. It's really mean, kind of punishing, but that takes way too long. So what we do instead is go here, right up this wall, go a bit to the left, launch over the penalty lap, turn around, and well, that's it. The lap, and I'm just gonna do that again. Turn around. The important thing is that I go over the penalty lap you see down there once, to confuse the checkpoint system, or to make it think I'm somewhere that I really am not. And well, that's Abyss. There you go. Kinda broken. Now for the finale. You can actually see most powerful pod in the game. By far the fastest pod in the game. Ben Cordinaros. He has 4 engines. He goes really fast. This track also has a skip. It's not quite as big as the other ones. It's pretty cool to look at though, but it's also quite difficult to get. So let's hope I get it. So you want to launch off this ramp, fly over here, and make it. Yes. That was kind of sketchy, but it worked out. Yeah, this is the last track of the game, so at the end of lap 3 it's gonna be time. Luckily, most of this went pretty smooth. Pretty happy about this run actually. I managed to show off most of the skips. Well, actually I managed to show off all of the skips, not all 3 times, but at least once, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. And for the last 2 laps I'm gonna leave you with the nice beeping sound of the pod and Ben's pure speed, so enjoy. So, that was Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I hope you guys had fun. Like I said, if you like this game, if you enjoy the game, check out the Discord. Check out the Star Wars Speedrun Discord as well. And definitely stay tuned, because next up we're gonna have Star Wars Shadows of the Empire by B-Mech Attacks. So, yeah, stay tuned. And see you guys.